Hi there. I just wanted to address this comment because I've gotten similar comments in the past and on my videos. Most recent, this is in response to another response. My first video was the food bank haul, and then the follow-up video was responding to a comment of quit begging, get a job. And then this comment came in of, doesn't your mom qualify for AIDS? And can't your son go to a specialty school geared for those with neurodivergency needs? And I wanted to address this because it is a good question, and it is a common question, because the idea is, hey, deal with the reason you're not working so then you can go get a job. And it is such a simplistic view when oftentimes it is not a simplistic situation. It also implies as if we haven't sat down, my husband and I, and come up with many different scenarios throughout the decade we have been married, as if we never thought to do that. And I don't mean that to be snarky, it's just what it feels like sometimes. But anyway, I wanted to address the two questions at hand. And we'll first start with, does my mom qualify for any type of aid? Yes, we've actually fought for so long for me to be paid as the aid. But prior, my mom had an aid almost for 10 years. She was part of the family. Literally, her and her husband helped my parents at my wedding. She was there to help get me stuff when I had my son. She left another client's house early when she found out my dad passed away. She gets my kids Christmas gifts. We're Facebook friends. She is an extended member of the family. And she chose to leave home health care and work at a facility. And that is why she left us. And we were heartbroken, but we knew it was the best choice for her mental and physical health. And for nearly 4 to 5 years, we spent that time trying to find another aid. And it was unsuccessful. But first, let me get into the most amount of time my mom qualifies for is 20 hours a week over a 7-day span. And in reality, we can break that up into any time per day and however many days we want. The problem is not a lot of aides want to come work on the weekends because not a lot of places offer time and a half for weekend work. And either home health aides want to work a chunk of time to make it beneficial to them financially, or they don't want to work a chunk of time because they have other obligations. So when we were saying 1 hour a day, we got a lot of no's. When we said 4 hours a day, we got a lot of no's. When we said Saturdays and Sundays, we got a lot of no's. It was a struggle. And then we dealt with no-shows, extremely late, leaving early. And when you put all of this together, that makes it hard to have a job with those factors. 20 hours a week, over 7 days or 5 days, not very conducive to a work schedule. And then also relying on the person showing up or calling out because they're sick or decide not to come, or show up late or leave early, makes it difficult to hold down a job with the reliability factor of another party. Add on top of that, you have liability policies for these home health agencies where I would have to be home when my mom is getting a bath or a shower, be it in a tub, in a shower chair. I have to be home, or somebody has to be home. It could be my husband. And a lot of the agencies will not prepare a meal, or will not supervise medication, or will not do simple personal care tasks like clip toenails and fingernails. Or in my mom's case, she needs like her face shaved. So a lot of the personal daily care needs, they wouldn't do unsupervised by another family member being present, or just in general. Again, that makes it difficult to hold down a job when you know a lot of the daily needs will not be met with a home health aide based upon the agency's policies. So in that regard, does she qualify? Yes. Does it make it any easier to go out and get a job? No, because once the hour or two a day are up, who's home with her? And in terms of going and sending her to a day program, she is deemed too disabled to ride on medical buses alone. I would have to ride with her, or my husband, or we would have to follow in our vehicle, and that would be to and from. And that holds true whether it's going to a doctor's visit, a day program. So again, not conducive if you're thinking in lines with getting a job and then your parent, whoever you're caregiving for, is being taken care of elsewhere. So then push comes to shove. What do? Then you have to hire a home health aide out of pocket. And if the goal is to get a job to bring in more money to lessen a financial burden, but that money would be going to a home health aide that you're paying out of pocket for multiple hours a day, and I get paid $15 an hour, and that's the state paying me, when in reality it should be $20 or $25 an hour. Any income I would bring in from a part-time job, I'm assuming would be part-time, just given the needs of our situation. My money is going to her caregiving, and that doesn't make sense financially. Not to mention, if she needs to go to the doctor, one of us has to be present, not just to take her, but to be there during the visits. So even if the home health aide would drive her, and some don't allow that, you still have to go and drive the person you're caregiving yourself, and the home health aide would follow in their vehicle just to assist you at the doctor. I would still be present, or my husband would be present. Doesn't alleviate something so that you can go get a job. Same if it's a telehealth visit. I still have to be present to help navigate the office visit. My mom cannot. That's just the reality of it. And a home health aide could not navigate it, and I don't even think could be present during it for HIPAA and all that good stuff. So for that question, does she qualify? Yes. Does that make it any more feasible to get a job? Not necessarily in our circumstance. Could it for others, based upon the needs of the individual? Absolutely. But not a one-size-fits-all situation, and that is what it's like for our situation. Now, in terms of my son is neurodivergent. My daughter is not presenting as such. So we will say she would go to a regular public, charter, or private school. Should we say, hey, it's time to go to school, kids, so mom could get a job? So we would have to potentially figure out 2 different school schedules. And I know you're going to say other parents do it, and I know they do. But clumping that into our personal situation in addition to my mom makes things difficult. But anyway, back to my son specifically. Those schools geared for his needs are not free by me, and if we want something halfway decent. And I found a school online who was extremely transparent with their pricing, that didn't require you to do tours and phone calls and meetings and all this stuff. And from what I've gathered from those I know who do send their children to schools geared for neurodivergency, this pricing and this format of money is pretty standard. So let's get into this pricing to send him to a school that would enable me to get a job. For frame of reference, this school runs its early daycare program from 7:30 to 7:45. School is from 8 to 1:30, and aftercare is 1:30 till 5 o'clock. Now, there's a one-time application fee of $250, a yearly registration fee of $750. Books are yearly $350, and tuition is yearly $25,000. The early daycare, should you need to drop your child off from 7:30 to 7:45, is $150 a day. And then aftercare from 1:30 to 5, no matter how much of that time you use, it's $300 a week. Now, there is financial aid for the tuition and tuition only, as well as scholarships. The scholarships that I saw that this school accepts kind of maxes out at $5,000. And I can't say how financial aid works and how much would be covered if we would qualify, etc., etc. But all of these fees that are some one time, some yearly, is a lot. Sorry, I had to cut myself short because I had to run out and go help my mom with something. But anyway, these are all, that's a lot of fees. And if my son were not doing so successfully being homeschooled, would we find a way? Absolutely. But these fees, these yearly tuitions and whatnot, and I'm assuming we might need early care, we might need aftercare, would in no way allow any income that I brought in to be put towards lessening a financial burden. If anything, it would probably be creating a financial burden. And that's why in the first place, when we first had my son, before a lot of the heavy caregiving needs my parents needed took effect, we were caregiving, but not to this extent. That's why I became a stay-at-home, because we would have been in the red. I worked 2 jobs, and it still wouldn't even cover daycare. There would literally be no money brought in, and we would be losing money. So it's no different right now. So if I were to get a job, even a full-time job, or a part-time job, a 3/4 job, whatever it is, it would be going towards sending him to school. And if that was the main goal, then absolutely. But if the main goal is to contribute to household funds so that we wouldn't have to go to a food bank, all of this is stemming from a food bank. It makes no sense financially. And lastly, we are a 1-car family. And while my husband and I made that work when we were newlyweds and in college, because my husband worked 1 full-time job and I worked 2 part-time jobs that allowed me the flexibility to caregive, our schedules were pretty much in a good rotation. I dropped him off and I picked him up. And sometimes if he worked nights, he just took the car. But now we're factoring in kids and a caregiving situation, and then factoring in a part-time job and his full-time job, and with his teaching schedule, it'd be right in line with sending kids to school and whatnot. There's no way to afford a second car right now. Again, it would be creating another financial burden. So sometimes in certain situations, it financially doesn't make sense to some degree, and we've met that to some degree here. And there's this old adage of you gotta spend money to make money, and I literally had somebody tell me that in the past, but that applies more to business, where you know you're going to recoup that money. We wouldn't be recouping this money necessarily. We would just be pouring out the money with little back. But I hope that helps some people understand the situation. And I know I'm still going to get people going, but I did it and I made it work. And I want you to know from the bottom of my heart, and I mean this with no snarkiness, I am glad that worked for you and you didn't sit back and struggle figuring out how to make it work. You made it work. There were no roadblocks. But times are different. Wages are different. Cost of living is different. Job scenarios are different. And everybody's own personal situations are just that. Their own personal and are not easily replicated. But it was a good question. And I thank you for asking it, and I thank everyone for allowing me the opportunity to explain the situation as it is with us. Okay, I gotta get back out there. My kids are doing their laundry, and I'm gonna help them put it away now and get my mom some breakfast. All right. I hope y'all are doing okay. And I'll talk to you later.